All right, welcome. Today, we are going to pull back the curtain on one of the most basic ingredients in your kitchen, butter. Now, you might just think it's there for flavor, but let me tell you, it is the secret architect behind every single one of your favorite baked goods. Let's get into it.
That's exactly it. You have to think of butter as the foundation, the scaffolding of whatever you're making. It's literally building the flaky layers in your croissant, creating that tender, delicate crumb in a cake, and giving a cookie that perfectly chewy center. It's doing all the heavy lifting from the inside out.
So here's what we're going to cover. First, we'll break down what butter is actually made of. Then we'll see how that creates amazing textures. We're going to crack the super important temperature code, settle that classic salted versus unsalted debate, and then wrap up with some best practices you can start using, like right now.
First up, the anatomy of butter. You know, to really get good at using an ingredient, you got to understand what it is at its core. And trust me, it's way more than just a yellow block. It's actually some really cool food science.
So what is butter, really? Well, at its most basic level, it's an emulsion. That's just a fancy word for a mix of fat and water, two things that usually don't like to hang out together. That unique combo, plus a few milk solids, is exactly where all the magic comes from.
And check this out. Every single part has a crucial job. That huge 80% chunk of fat, that's for richness. That's for that incredible mouthfeel. The 18% water is a secret leavening agent. It turns into steam in your oven and creates lift and airiness. And that tiny 2% of milk solids, oh, that is your golden ticket to deep, nutty flavor and those perfect brown edges.
So now we know what's in the butter. Time for section 2. Let's dive into how all those parts work together to create this secret to texture. Seriously, this is where it gets really fun.
This is what is so cool. The very same ingredient can give you completely different results. For a cake, you cream it with sugar and you're whipping in tons of tiny air bubbles for a light, tender crumb. For cookies, you let it melt and spread, and that's what gives you that signature soft chew. And for pastries, you keep it ice cold and it creates poppets of steam that explode into hundreds of flaky, airy layers. It's all about how you treat it.
And it's not just about texture, right? It's about flavor and looks too. Butter adds this warm, rich flavor that, let's be honest, nothing else can really copy. It makes other ingredients like chocolate and vanilla taste even better. And hey, remember those milk solids? They caramelize in the oven, creating those perfect, crispy, golden brown edges we all fight over.
Okay, this brings us to what might just be the single most important part of this whole explainer, the temperature code. I really can't say this enough. The temperature of your butter in a recipe is not a suggestion, it is a command.
This is the whole ballgame, right here. Getting the temperature right unlocks totally different behaviors in the butter. It is, without a doubt, the one thing that separates a pretty good bake from an absolutely fantastic one. So let's break this down. When a recipe calls for cold butter, like for pie crusts or scones, you want those solid little pieces of fat to stay separate. In the oven, the water inside them turns to steam, pushing the dough layers apart and creating all that incredible flakiness. Now flip that around. Softened butter is what you want for cakes and cookies because it's perfect for creaming with sugar. It's soft enough to trap tons of air, which gives you a light, tender, and beautifully risen result. And then, of course, there's melted butter. When you melt it down, you're not trying to incorporate any air at all. That's why it's the go-to for things like brownies, where what you really want is a dense, fudgy, and intensely moist texture. No air equals maximum chewiness. Simple as that. All right, time to tackle the question that haunts every baker in the dairy aisle. Salted versus unsalted. Does it actually matter? Oh yeah, it absolutely does.
Pretty much every professional baker will tell you to go for unsalted, and here are the 3 big reasons why. 1, you get total control over how much salt goes into your recipe. 2, the salt level in salted butter is all over the place depending on the brand, which makes your bakes inconsistent. And 3, this is a great little tip, salt is a preservative, so unsalted butter often has to be sold faster, which means it's usually fresher.
But hey, don't panic. If all you've got in the fridge is salted butter, you can definitely still use it. The general rule is pretty simple. Just reduce the extra salt in your recipe by about 1/4 teaspoon for every half cup or 1 stick of salted butter. Easy enough, right? Okay, let's bring it all home. Our final section, butter best practices. This is where we take all that nerdy science and turn it into simple, easy-to-remember rules for guaranteed success in the kitchen.
So here are your 5 golden rules. 1, go for unsalted whenever you can. It just gives you more control. 2, room temp means the butter can bend without breaking, but it's not a greasy melted puddle. 3,
Cream your butter when it's soft but still cool to the touch for the best aeration. 4, for pastries, keep that butter cold, like throw it in the freezer for 15 minutes cold. And 5, don't substitute. Butter and oil do very different things, so trust the recipe.
So if there's one thing to take away from all this, it's this. Butter is so much more than a fat. It's an active structural ingredient. It doesn't just add flavor. It is literally shaping your baked goods from the molecular level all the way up.
Once you understand how it works, the temperature, the composition, you unlock a whole new level of baking. You're not just following steps anymore. You're conducting an orchestra of fat, water, and heat. So with all this new knowledge, the only question is, what amazing thing are you going to create next?